to show everyone this box I made. I saw something similar to this on the Woodwright shop last year or earlier this season. And in case, I just wanted a box that looked like an old box for odds and ends type stuff. Oddball bolts and screws and metal fittings and washers and bearings and whatever other off-the-wall knick-knack one-off type things that people accumulate over the years and you don't really have a place for them. So this is going to be my place for them. Just throw them in here. And I wanted it to look old and I wanted it to look rustic. And the yellow pine this is made from is old. Actually, it's probably about 50 years old, and it has been painted more than once. And rather than clean it off perfectly and you know, sort of destroy the patina entirely, I just used a hand scraper, a planer, some sandpaper, different things to sort of get off most of the paint, but I left some of it on, as if over the years it had kind of worn down naturally. Open it up inside. It has this little tray that fits right on the top. Remove that out, and that sits on a couple of cleats right there. The inside of the box is just the sort of natural patina of the wood. I did a little bit to it, not very much, just some light sanding to get off any kind of dirt. The handles are just very simple, shop-made handles. A little bit of a bevel on the sides, a little bit of a finger relief on the bottom so that you can pick it up. And these are held on by sturdy deck screws. They're not coming off. The bottom is just rabbited in place. You can't tell from just the video, obviously, but there is a dado and a groove, not a rabbet, the dado and a groove, that run around the perimeter of the box on the inside. The bottom has a matching tenon, and it just slides right in there, and it's just a loose fit, so it sort of floats in place and has room for a little expansion and contraction. Maybe a total of an 1/8 inch all the way around, maybe a smidgen more. The box top is just very simple with breadboard ends, and they are pinned with dowels. You probably can't see it in the video, but there are 3 dowels that pin it in place. The 2 outside dowels are sort of wallered out, so as this panel wants to move a little bit, expand and contract, it can do that without resisting those dowels too much. And of course the center dowel is just pinned in place so that all the movement will be from here out. The sides themselves, which you can see better from the end, the sides themselves are just simple rabbets. I was going to dovetail this box, and I did some practice dovetails in this old pine, and it just wasn't pleasant. The chiseling in this old pine was not fun. The dark yellow growth rings are super hard, and the light growth rings are sort of brittle and a bit crumbly, and I could not get a good chisel. My chisel just wasn't sharp enough to chop out those dovetails without a lot of tear out and blowout. So I just gave up on that, and I could have done box joints, but I've yet to get around to building a box joint jig, so I didn't do that. And I've built many drawers with just simple rabbets, and they're held together with glue and reinforced with nails for sort of keeping a theme with the rustic appearance. I don't think the nails are really necessary, but they're in there, and I think it'll last a long time. Certainly not as strong as box joints, not as strong as dovetails, but like I said, I've built many drawers with just rabbets and lots of drawers, shop drawers for shop furniture, and some of those have been around here for 15 years, and with opening and shutting and slamming and frequent use, and not a single one of them has fallen apart yet, so I think this will be fun. it'll probably outlive me, and if it doesn't, you know, go much longer than that, that's perfectly fine with me. I built it for me. I didn't build it for generations. I have 2 daughters, and they have little interest in woodworking or metalworking or piddling around, and so they're not going to care about a box full of random junk when that day comes. Maybe their husbands will. If they do, they can have it, and if the box falls apart, they can build a new one. That'll be a great project for them. So that is that. And one other thing I'll mention is the hinges. I bought these brass hinges at the hardware store. The labeling said brass, did not say brass plated. It said brass. However, it turned out they were brass plated, and I aged them using acid, muriatic acid, suspended. I put them through a wire and suspended them over the acid so that the fumes would sort of age the brass, and it kind of worked, but I noticed that after a while some rust started showing up, and of course brass doesn't rust, and that's when I noticed the fumes had apparently eaten through the brass plating a little bit and formed some rust on the steel underneath. The screws themselves, they're definitely just brass plated steel. And I actually, sort of in keeping with the theme of an old rustic piece, I accidentally lost one of the screws and I had to replace it. The only screw that I had that would fit was a small steel screw. So, and it's kind of shiny and it's kind of new and it stands in contrast to everything else, but I think in a way it just sort of reinforces that image of here's an old box that someone's had to repair over the years. The lid I had fitting absolutely dead flat and perfect on there, and then the box fell off my table saw. After the box fell, it sprung the lid. Something is not quite right now, and it doesn't fit perfectly flat anymore. And really, I'm okay with that. I may, revisit it. Probably not. Probably not going to mess with it anymore. Like I said, it's supposed to look like an old box, and quite frankly, I've seen a lot of old boxes with sprung lids like that don't close perfectly flat, so I can live with it. One or two other things I will point out. Some of this wood had larger holes in it. For example, this piece I used for the lid had a pretty sizable hole that went most of the way through the wood. So I came and I just happened to have a scrap piece of walnut in the trash bin that was almost exactly the right size and shape to fill that hole. So I just simply chiseled out the hole and squared out the bottom of it, and cut this piece of walnut to fit it and filled it with epoxy. Put it in there with epoxy and scraped it flush. And it's ugly, but I mean, it's solid. And there was one other hole on the inside. You won't be able to see this, I don't think, on the camera. No, you're not going to be able to. Maybe if I bring it up a little closer. No, it's too dark. It's too dark by the camera. There was another large hole on the inside here, and I just filled that with epoxy and wood dust, and sanded that flush. And it actually looks pretty cool. I kind of like the way it turned out, but it's hidden behind this cleat, so you don't even really notice it. Anyway, that's my odds and ends box. I built this on the side, sort of a little side project, off and on over several months, and I did get some video of the build, but not very much. So I will tack that onto the end of this video if you're curious, but there's nothing very complicated about it. There's nothing here that anyone couldn't replicate with just a few power tools. And that's it. That's my odds and ends box. Now, I just have to spend a lifetime filling it up. And I guess maybe that'll be the fun part. Thank you. Some of this wood had